Hola mi gente. It is October 1st, 2025, and this is the podcast of Christelle Nadia Fotso. Since the beginning of season 2, I told you that I took my case to the United Nations and to the African Union. I filed a complaint on August 25th. Then I talked to you about Catherine Thérèse Crochet, a lawyer, a member of the Geneva Bar Association. She was my father, Victor Fotso. Fotso Victor, wealth manager for over 30 years. I also told you that when he died, she called me to tell me that she had nothing. Then she tried because I realized that she was lying, that she has a network who is used to looting African wealth, to use my disability. Catherine Thérèse Crochet has been demoted, to say things politely, from two of her firms. We're talking here again about a Geneva lawyer, African wealth Geneva lawyer. Then I talked to you about the banks. I told you that so far, 6 Barclays, HSBC, LGT Bank, Bank Frick, LLB Bank, and JP Morgan Chase have acknowledged that they have my dad's assets and that now they are using all types of procedures to make it very, very difficult for me to get my inheritance. I told you about Barclays, who went nuclear by using ableism to say to me, even though they know that they have my dad assets, they recognize my standing. They don't dispute that the money is my inheritance. What Barclays did was to basically say to physically challenge women of color, get a court order. They use ableism procedure to make sure that what is going on right now continue, that they have the time to do what they usually do when the question is African wealth. This Monday, September 29, 2025, I filed a criminal complaint against Pierre Castel. He is one of my dad's partner. He is very, very famous throughout Africa because he owns beer companies. And in France, in Europe, he is the king of wine. Pierre Castel met my dad, Victor Fotso, Fotso Victor, for the first time in the 1950s. Most African countries were not yet independent. They developed a partnership. My dad believed that Pierre Castel was his friend. He died being loyal to Pierre Castel. I filed a complaint against Castel, saying one thing, not that he owed me charity. He violated Swiss law. Article 128 to be precise. It is important to contextualize. We are not here talking about an isolated incident, a strange case of an African billionaire. We're talking about a system. Barclays, an international bank. Catherine Crochet, who is very, very influential in Geneva, who has been doing this, looting African wealth. Pierre Castel. I, Miente, have a relationship with Pierre Castel. This is the reason why Article 128 of the Swiss law applies. I went to see him for the first time in 2016. He was the last living partner of my dad. My dad was in trouble because Cameroon, being Cameroon, predators were sensing that there was an opportunity. So I went to see Pierre Castel. I talked to him about what was going on. We talked about my dad, his end of life, his estate, and my request, which was very, very naive, was, Monsieur Castel, please help me save my dad. We continued having conversations. At some point, he said to me, there's nothing I can do because I can't be the only one who helps him. I don't want to be the only one. When I filed my first complaint in France, I wrote to Pierre Castel about it. I gave him details, telling him what was going on, thinking, because he knows Cameroon very, very well. He is extremely well informed that he was going to do something because he is my dad's age. Pierre Castel was born in 1926. Pierre Castel didn't do anything. I kept on trying because I felt that if somebody had the means to help, it was him. I talked to him about what was going on with me, the financial violence. He didn't do anything. My dad died on March 19, 2020. His death was announced the day later. 2 days after that, Pierre Castel called me. He said, I'm saddened by your dad passing. And then he did something very interesting. He talked to me about the estate. He said to me, it's a very, very important estate. And there's going to be a war over it. He stopped there. I felt that if a man who is one of the wealthiest men in France, so in the world, does this, it means that he cares, he knows, and that he's going to help. After all, my dad was his partner and considered him to be a friend. Nothing. In the complaint, I talk about this episode that I tell in my article on Substack that happened in 2018 that should have told me that Castel never saw me as a normal person, as the daughter of a friend, that he just saw me as a disabled African woman. So in 2018, my dad is close to dying. I was living in Brussels at the time. I take the train to go to Paris. I have Pierre Castel's personal number, so I know that he's going to be there. So I get to his office. This wasn't the first time I was taking the train from Brussels to Paris. I get there. There is a concierge, a black woman, probably of African origin. She calls Castel's office and his personal assistant, Julie Gilbert, comes downstairs. She's extremely aggressive and mean. She says to me, Pierre Castel is not here. You should go and never come back here. I say, I know that he's here. I've talked to him. So what are you talking about? Then she says to me, what are you doing here? She starts limping, imitating the way I walk, and she says to me, you're a lawyer. Why aren't you at your office working? Why are you bothering Mr. Castel? You are never, ever going to see him again. I am shocked. I look at her and I say, no, I'm just going to call Mr. Castel, ask him what's going on. She goes back upstairs. The concierge let me use her phone, the phone of the lobby. I call Mr. Castel, and he is extremely annoyed, even angry, very, very condescending, and says, why are you calling me? Our relationship had always been very, very cordial. We never had any type of incident that would explain this. And I say to him, Mr. Castel, I came from Brussels just to see you. Again, disabled woman here. And he says to me, I don't have time. And hangs up. Because I was desperate, I decide to wait, thinking that remembering the effort that it takes for a disabled person to make this trip, to come to see him, to wait, that he would, when he left, come to me and say something. He never did. The concierge, who's again is a black woman, probably of African descent, of Caribbean descent, she says to me, he left through the back. I had waited for over 10 hours. At the end of the day, when Julie Gilbert, his personal assistant, she leaves for the day, she comes to me and she says, why don't you take pity of yourself? What are you doing here? You're bothering us. We don't want to see you. I have no respect for you. Just know that you're never, ever going to see Mr. Castel again. This was in October 2018. 2 years later, when my dad died, he called me and chose to talk about my dad's estate. The point of the story is not to tell you that Pierre Castel is a bad man. The point of the story is not to say that he treats African like dirt, that he doesn't like disabled people, that my feelings were hurt, that because he humiliated me with his staff, that they deserve to be punished by Swiss law. No. The point of the story is to tell you that Pierre Castel is used to think that the law doesn't apply to him and to think that the Swiss are not going to care. Pierre Castel lives in Switzerland. He has been living in Switzerland since 1981. What does the law say? Article 128 has 4 elements. Non-assistance to a person who's in danger. So there has to be a danger. Throughout our 9-year relationship, I talked with Pierre Castel about my dad, about my situation. He saw me, he saw the degradation, he saw the blowback as I was trying to help. And again, he's Pierre Castel. Very, very well informed, especially because he's one of the kings of Cameroon. He's very, very well connected. He has all the information that he needs. He knew me. He knew that I was disabled. He saw the impact of the situation on me. So he had the second element after imminent danger, the knowledge, the ability to act. Pierre Castel is one of the richest men in the world. Africa has made Pierre Castel one of the richest, wealthiest men in the world. So he has the means to act. He has the means to help. And I'm going to go further. His word. Pierre Castel could have chosen to just speak when Catherine Crochet, the banks, their network were weaponizing my disability. A word from Pierre Castel would have stopped this, would have made it impossible for them to steal my inheritance. Fotso Victor's estate. He remained silent, knowing full well what the consequences of his silence, of his inaction would be. Lastly, the voluntary refusal to do so. Throughout the years, Miante, even when I realized that Catherine Crochet was the lawyer enabling all of this, I wrote to Pierre Castel. No reaction, not even curiosity. People may choose to make this about me, about African heirs, about an uppity, physically challenged woman who thinks that she can be an heir when most Africans don't have enough to eat. That is not the issue. It is a distraction. The only thing that matters is they, Barclays, Catherine Crochet, and Pierre Castel have violated the law. I do not have to be the perfect victim, even though I am the perfect prey. Pierre Castel is used to writing a check when the law catches up with him. My dad was a traditional African male in the sense that he was very, very grounded in the history, the values of his village, Banjul. And in Banjul, in most African villages, loyalty means something. Loyalty matters. My dad would have never treated Castel's family members the way he has treated me. He was an African. And he knew that the law would have been extremely strict if he had humiliated a member of the Castel family and if he had played with what he considered to be a vulnerability to seize Castel assets. My complaint, my criminal complaint against Pierre Castel is a challenge, not just to the Swiss, but to the UN and to the African Union. Tell us whether disability really matters? Do they have courage not to remain on the sidelines? Because Barclays is one of the biggest banks in the world, because Catherine Crochet is influential, and because Pierre Castel is a billionaire. My challenge is them to show that international law matters. My founder, Victor Fotso, came from nothing. He was born during colonial times. He never had the advantages of Pierre Castel. He didn't know how to read or how to write. He made it. He had the disadvantage to be an African in an era where African wealth can be looted by all type of predators without anybody doing anything. Pierre Castel, throughout his business life, has believed that money, especially when it comes to Africa, to Africans, and to the most vulnerable, puts him above the law. And I know that here, the fight is David against Goliath. I am doing it because it is worth it. I am not backing down. I am staring the Swiss, the UN, the AU in the eye and asking them, does disability matter? Are you going to continue to allow African wealth to be looted even when those doing it spit on the face of universal values? Niente? Read the article on Substack. I will put the link in the description of this episode. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to Substack, and share. I need your voice. This is about a system that has no respect for African lives, African wealth, and Africans, especially when they are vulnerable. Miente. Thank you for listening. On reste ensemble.